The idea that God is defined by a pronoun as either masculine or feminine is absurd. God is gender neutral. And the movement by the current Archbishop to depronoun, to remove the gender of God in services, is of course the right thing to do. But this is so difficult to achieve, and it's something that has been going on, in fact, in Christianity, in Judaism, for about 30 years. It's going to have a huge impact, of course, on major prayers like the Pater Noster, the Our Father, but I think it's the right impact. When you start looking at the icons in the Orthodox Church, and particularly the icons of the Novgorod school in Russia, the icons with the black center in the nimbus surrounding Christ, surrounding God. It's about the unknown essence of God. This follows the tradition of palimism, that we can know the energies of God, we can know what God touches, but we cannot know God as a deity. I was going to say we cannot know God himself, we cannot know God herself, we cannot know God. We cannot know God. We can only know what God touches. And that, I think, should encourage us to look at more gender-inclusive language, more more language which is less gender-specific. But of course, the Christian story is anchored in a particular time and a particular place where gender is quite specific. The Christian story is gender-specific, and it is impossible to remove that. Though this hasn't stopped a lot of speculation during the Middle Ages, particularly, which would lead to questions about Jesus's gender and to a veiling of Jesus's gender. But that cannot be disputed. It is specific. It is specific, it is concrete. And that is the form of the incarnation. Jesus as man is the form of the incarnation. God as Father is far less specific, and indeed the prayer, Our Father, was not God our Father, it was God our Daddy. It was about a childish appeal to the parent, and maybe an appropriate inclusive language would be to see God as parent rather than as father or mother. And as for the Jewish approach, Avinu Malkeinu, our God, our King. Again, this is rooted in a paternalistic history, and I think it is impossible to extricate the language of God in Hebrew, from its historical context. But the concept of God, as, for example, communicated in the Kabbalistic writings and in the mysticism of Kabbalism, is again non-specific, is gender neutral, is about God as parent, as form, as origin, as destiny, and as power. And that is not defined by a pronoun.